The entertainment world was left reeling when shocking news broke about Suzanne Rogers, the beloved star of Days of Our Lives, whose private battle with stage 2 colorectal cancer had remained hidden for months. At 82, Rogers, who has graced American television screens for over 5 decades, silently faced one of the most terrifying diagnoses imaginable while continuing to embody the warmth and grace of Maggie Horton, the role that made her a living legend. The revelation stunned both fans and colleagues, not only because of her illness but because of the extraordinary strength she displayed throughout her ordeal. Behind the scenes, she was enduring radiation and chemotherapy every single day, yet she still appeared poised, radiant, and full of life whenever she stepped in front of the camera. When news outlets confirmed that Rogers had completed 6 weeks of treatment and was preparing to return to the set, the headlines spread like wildfire. Social media exploded with messages of disbelief and admiration. Longtime viewers shared emotional tributes, calling her the heart of daytime television and a true fighter. Many admitted to tears upon learning that their favorite actress had faced such a painful journey in silence. For decades, Suzanne Rogers has been more than just an actress. She has been a symbol of endurance, elegance, and unwavering devotion to her craft. The revelation of her recent health struggle shook Hollywood to its core, reminding everyone why her story matters. This wasn't the first time she had battled the odds. Her past fight with a rare muscle disorder in the 1980s had already proven her courage. But this time, the emotional weight was heavier, the stage brighter, and the love from the audience deeper than ever. As she prepares to return to the Days of Our Lives set, her fans see her not merely as a performer but as a survivor, an icon who turned pain into power and vulnerability into victory. When Suzanne Rogers finally spoke about her illness, she did so with the same honesty and grace that have defined her entire career. Sitting in a quiet studio for an exclusive interview, she admitted that she first sensed something was wrong earlier this year. "I just felt that something wasn't quite right," she said, recalling the moment that changed everything. Her intuition led her to call her doctor, who ordered a series of tests: a colonoscopy, MRI, and PET scan. The results confirmed her fears: stage 2 colorectal cancer. For a woman who had spent her life dancing, performing, and spreading joy, it was a devastating blow. "I was in shock for days," she confessed. "I take good care of myself, I exercise, I eat right, I get checkups. But still, it happened." The way she handled the diagnosis, however, left everyone astonished. Rather than retreating from public life, Suzanne quietly scheduled her treatments, determined not to let the disease define her. For 6 long weeks, she underwent radiation and chemotherapy every day between June and July, all while Days of Our Lives happened to be on production break, a twist of fate she called a small miracle. She spent her weekends resting, her energy drained but her spirit unbroken. "I was tired of seeing doctors," she admitted, "but I was grateful for every day the treatment worked." During that period, she found comfort in unexpected places. Her on-screen daughter, actress Lindsay Godfrey, became her real-life guardian angel. Lindsay, who had survived her own cancer battle years before, accompanied Suzanne to many of her medical appointments. "She knew exactly what I was going through," Rogers said with a soft smile. "She would hold my hand, crack jokes, and remind me that I was stronger than I thought." The bond between them, already forged through years of playing mother and daughter, deepened beyond the screen. Cast members sent flowers, messages, and daily check-ins. Producers made it clear she had no deadline to return. "They told me, 'Take all the time you need, your family,'" she recalled. That support gave her courage to keep going, even when the fatigue made it hard to stand or speak. As the summer went on, her body began to heal. She didn't lose her iconic red hair, something she considered a lucky blessing. By late July, doctors confirmed her remission was progressing positively. The relief was overwhelming. Suzanne burst into tears upon hearing the news, not from fear, but from gratitude. She had survived once again. For her fans, this wasn't just a medical story, it was a testament to her resilience. People across the country who had grown up watching her as Maggie Horton said her strength gave them hope to face their own struggles. Online, the phrase "Maggie Strong" began trending as fans celebrated her courage. But the story of Suzanne Rogers isn't only about survival, it's about a lifetime of passion that never dimmed. Long before the cancer, she had conquered another health battle. In 1984, she was diagnosed with myasthenia gravis, a rare muscle disorder that distorted her face and weakened her body. The medication she was given made her ill, forcing her to take a break from Days of Our Lives after 11 years on screen. Many thought her career was over. Instead, she returned a year later, stronger and more determined, convincing producers to let her character, Maggie, share the same disease so she could raise awareness. That decision changed how audiences viewed illness on television. It was raw, real, and brave. It proved Suzanne wasn't afraid to show vulnerability, both as a performer and as a woman. Now, decades later, history seemed to repeat itself. Once again, she faced a disease that threatened to take her away from her audience. Once again, she turned it into a story of hope. Her upcoming return to Days of Our Lives has become one of the most anticipated events in daytime television. Producers say her comeback scene, set in the warm, familiar kitchen of the Horton home, will be filmed exactly as she left it, as if time itself paused for her. Colleagues are planning a small celebration on set, a symbolic gesture for the woman who never gave up. As Suzanne herself put it, "I don't know what the future holds, but I know that I'm lucky to be here. Every sunrise feels like another curtain call." Her words resonated far beyond Hollywood. Fans who had followed her journey since the 1970s saw in her the reflection of endurance, faith, and gratitude. The entertainment industry, often obsessed with youth and glamour, suddenly remembered the quiet power of longevity and heart. Suzanne Rogers, once a dancer from Virginia who dreamed of Broadway, had become something far greater, a living symbol of perseverance and love for the art that shaped her life. As Suzanne Rogers prepared to walk back onto the Days of Our Lives set after her recovery, the atmosphere was electric. Crew members who had worked with her for decades lined the hallway leading to Stage 4 at the NBC lot, the same stage where she had filmed her first scenes as Maggie Horton in 1973. There was a quiet reverence in the air, as if the studio itself understood the gravity of the moment. When she finally stepped through the door, a burst of applause erupted. Sound technicians, makeup artists, camera operators, everyone stood to honor the woman who had given her life to this world. Tears flowed freely. Some had grown up watching her, others had grown old working beside her. For all of them, Suzanne was more than a co-worker. She was family. "Welcome home, Maggie," someone whispered, and Suzanne smiled, her eyes glistening with emotion. The return wasn't just symbolic, it was historic. No other actress in American television history had played the same character for so long, over 50 consecutive years. Through decades of changing storylines, new generations of cast members, and evolving cultural landscapes, Suzanne Rogers had remained the heart of Days of Our Lives. Her character, Maggie Horton, had survived loss, love, tragedy, and miracles, much like the actress herself. That parallel had always fascinated fans. Maggie's resilience mirrored Suzanne's own life. When Maggie overcame paralysis, Suzanne was simultaneously battling myasthenia gravis. When Maggie grieved, Suzanne was facing personal heartbreak. And when Maggie found hope again, Suzanne was quietly rebuilding her health and strength off-screen. It was this seamless blend of reality and fiction that made her portrayal unforgettable. In her dressing room, filled with photographs from the show's early years, she took a deep breath and looked at her reflection in the mirror. The same fiery red hair that audiences loved shone under the bright bulbs. "I feel good," she told a producer nearby. "A little nervous, but good." He smiled back. "We've been waiting for this day, Suzanne." Her first scene back was simple yet powerful. A quiet breakfast scene in the Horton kitchen, where Maggie pours coffee and reflects on family. But to those who knew the backstory, it was much more than a scene. It was a celebration of survival. The cameras rolled, and when she delivered her first line, "It's good to be home," even the cameramen couldn't hold back their emotions. The impact of her comeback rippled far beyond the studio. Entertainment outlets across the country covered her return as a moment of national inspiration. Viewers described watching her performance as watching courage personified. For many fans, she wasn't just acting. She was teaching them how to face fear, how to keep living with dignity even when life seems impossible. On social media, clips of her first day back went viral, and fans flooded the comments with messages of gratitude. One fan wrote, "Maggie Horton helped me survive cancer. Seeing Suzanne back on screen feels like hope coming home." Yet, behind that triumphant return was a story of discipline and quiet determination. During her recovery, Suzanne had followed a strict regimen designed to rebuild her strength without exhausting her body. She worked with nutritionists, physical therapists, and meditation coaches to maintain balance. Her mornings began with gentle stretching. Her evenings ended with gratitude journaling. "Healing," she often said, "isn't just about medicine. It's about faith, patience, and love." That mindset had carried her through both of her life-threatening battles. Doctors praised her for her resilience, noting that her early detection and unwavering positivity played a crucial role in her recovery. But Suzanne's journey wasn't only physical, it was emotional and spiritual as well. Having grown up in Colonial Heights, Virginia, she was raised in a humble household that valued faith and perseverance. She began dancing at age 2 and left home at 17 to chase her dream in New York City. As a rockette at Radio City Music Hall, she learned discipline, precision, and the importance of showmanship. Broadway followed, with appearances in musicals like Coco, Hallelujah Baby, and Follies. Each role built the foundation for her eventual leap into television. When she moved to California in 1973, she was simply hoping for an opportunity. What she found was destiny. Her portrayal of Maggie Horton redefined the archetype of a soap opera heroine. Instead of glamour and scandal, Suzanne brought warmth, humility, and authenticity. She gave Maggie a heartbeat, a sense of humanity that resonated across generations. Over the decades, her character became the emotional anchor of Days of Our Lives, connecting every era of the show's evolution. Critics called her the living soul of daytime TV. Even after so many years, she approached every scene as if it were her first, studying her lines meticulously, encouraging younger actors, and arriving early on set each morning. It's no surprise, then, that her success translated into financial prosperity. Though Suzanne never flaunted her wealth, estimates of her fortune reached staggering levels. Some sources citing as much as $700 million thanks to decades of royalties, contracts, and smart investments. Her family, deeply private, was reportedly moved to tears when these figures circulated online, not out of greed, but pride. It was proof that integrity, persistence, and talent could build a legacy far greater than fame alone. Her influence also extends to charity work and mentorship. Suzanne has quietly supported medical research foundations for both myasthenia gravis and colorectal cancer, using her platform to promote early detection and patient care. Former co-stars often speak of her generosity, how she sends handwritten notes to colleagues during hard times, or how she quietly covers the expenses of crew members facing illness. Her kindness is legendary within the industry. Now, as she embraces this new chapter, Suzanne Rogers stands as a rare symbol of endurance in a world obsessed with change. Her story reminds Hollywood and the world that greatness is not measured by fame or fortune, but by grace under pressure and the ability to rise after every fall. She has faced illness, loss, and uncertainty, yet she continues to shine with quiet elegance. For millions who grew up watching her, Suzanne is more than a performer. She is a part of their lives, a source of strength, a reminder that resilience can be beautiful. As she once said during an emotional interview, "Life gives us challenges so we can show the world what strength looks like. I may have scars, but they're proof that I fought and I'm still here." Those words have since echoed across social media, becoming a mantra for anyone who has ever faced the impossible. And indeed, Suzanne Rogers is still here, radiant, triumphant, and more inspiring than ever. The weeks following Suzanne Rogers' return to Days of Our Lives were nothing short of magical. The audience response was overwhelming, a wave of affection that transcended generations and borders. Viewers who had followed the show since the 70s wrote letters and emails, some recalling how they had grown up watching Maggie Horton with their parents or grandparents. Younger fans who had only recently discovered the series said they were struck by her warmth and authenticity, qualities that seemed increasingly rare in today's entertainment world. When her comeback episode aired, the network reported one of its highest daytime viewership spikes in years. Even critics who had long stopped reviewing soap operas tuned in just to witness her performance. "It wasn't acting," one critic wrote. "It was life itself, filtered through the eyes of a woman who has truly seen everything." Suzanne, however, remained characteristically humble. When reporters asked her how it felt to receive such a reaction, she simply smiled and said, "I just did my job. Maggie has been part of me for half a century. Returning to her was like returning home." But everyone around her knew that what she had accomplished went far beyond professional dedication. It was an act of courage, a living example of resilience and love for the craft. Behind every calm smile, there was a lifetime of triumphs and heartbreaks that had shaped the woman fans admired today. As her health stabilized, Suzanne began sharing more about her journey, not out of vanity, but to inspire others. She spoke openly about the moment she received her cancer diagnosis, describing it as a cold, quiet silence that changes the way you see everything. She talked about the fatigue, the nausea, and the endless doctor visits, but also about the small, miraculous victories that came with each day of healing. "Some mornings I would wake up and just breathe," she said softly in one interview. "I realized that breathing itself was a gift." Her candor struck a chord with millions, especially older viewers who saw in her a mirror of their own struggles. Hospitals and cancer centers began playing her interviews in waiting rooms, saying her words lifted patients' spirits more than any motivational speech ever could. Her life story, spanning from a small-town girl in Virginia to one of television's most enduring stars, took on an almost mythic quality. Suzanne had faced every imaginable obstacle: the physical toll of her illnesses, the emotional burden of public life, and the constant pressure of maintaining relevance in an industry that often discards women after a certain age. Yet she not only endured, she thrived. Her grace under pressure became legendary. Colleagues often remarked that she never raised her voice, never complained, and always found something to laugh about, even during the darkest days. "She taught us that kindness is power," one co-star said, "and that real stars don't need to shine the brightest, they just need to keep shining." Financially, her legacy is equally remarkable. Though Suzanne rarely spoke about money, the industry couldn't help but marvel at her estimated fortune, which various outlets speculated to be in the hundreds of millions. For someone who came from humble beginnings, it was an astonishing achievement. But those who knew her best said she valued impact more than income. She quietly donated large sums to children's hospitals, arts education programs, and research for neuromuscular diseases. She also mentored young actors, teaching them the discipline and respect that she believed television demanded. "Fame is fleeting," she once told a group of new cast members, "but integrity lasts forever." Her remarkable generosity extended to the Days of Our Lives family as well. Crew members often recalled how Suzanne remembered everyone's names, birthdays, and even the names of their children. During holidays, she sent handwritten cards with notes of gratitude, something almost unheard of in modern Hollywood. When a longtime lighting technician fell ill, Suzanne reportedly paid for his treatment anonymously. When asked about it later, she only said, "We're all family here. You don't turn your back on family." But perhaps the most defining moment of Suzanne's late career came when she was inducted into the Emmys Gold Circle by the National Academy of Television Arts and Sciences. The ceremony, held in 2024, celebrated television figures who had dedicated more than 50 years to the medium. As she walked onto the stage in a sparkling silver gown, the entire room rose to its feet. Standing ovations are common in award shows, but this one lasted nearly 3 minutes. Suzanne's eyes shimmered as she looked out at her peers, some old friends, some new admirers, and said, "I never did this for awards. I did it because I loved every single day of storytelling." Her voice broke slightly as she added, "Television has given me a life I never could have imagined. If I've given even a fraction of that love back, then it's all been worth it." The audience erupted in applause once again, many visibly moved to tears. Even after that moment of glory, Suzanne refused to slow down. She continued filming, attending fan conventions, and making public appearances, always emphasizing gratitude. "I don't know how long I'll keep doing this," she said in a 2025 interview, "but as long as there's a story to tell, I'll be there." Her resilience has become a beacon for anyone struggling with adversity, reminding the world that strength and vulnerability can coexist beautifully. In private, Suzanne often credits her late parents for instilling in her the values that guided her through life: humility, faith, and perseverance. Friends say that despite her fame, she still cooks her own meals, tends her garden, and enjoys quiet evenings with classical music and old Hollywood films. When asked what happiness means to her now, she answered without hesitation, "Peace. To wake up in the morning and know that I've made a difference, even a small one. That's happiness." Her story continues to unfold like the soap opera she has long embodied, filled with unexpected turns, heartbreaks, and comebacks, yet always anchored by love. Suzanne Rogers is more than just a star. She's a living piece of television history, a testament to endurance, compassion, and unshakable grace. Her journey proves that true greatness doesn't fade with age. It deepens, it glows, and it continues to touch hearts long after the final scene fades to black. As autumn settled over Los Angeles, Suzanne Rogers' story continued to capture the public's imagination. What had begun as a quiet revelation about her illness had evolved into a movement of admiration, compassion, and renewed respect for one of television's most enduring icons. The entertainment industry, so often consumed by fleeting trends and disposable fame, suddenly found itself talking about grace, perseverance, and the rare beauty of longevity. It seemed everyone, from fellow actors to journalists to lifelong viewers, was reminded of what true artistry looks like when lived with humility and purpose. Suzanne's image, radiant and serene, graced magazine covers once again, not as a nostalgic tribute, but as a living example of strength in its purest form. Her resilience resonated far beyond Hollywood. In interviews, she spoke openly about how illness had reshaped her perspective on life, stripping away superficial worries and revealing what truly mattered. "You realize how fragile time is," she said softly, "and how precious it feels just to wake up and be able to create again." She described her mornings as moments of quiet reflection, sunlight streaming through her kitchen window, a cup of tea beside her script, and the familiar hum of life returning to normal. "I feel reborn," she told one reporter, "as if I've been given a second chance to live with more gratitude." Those words struck a chord with millions who were battling their own invisible challenges. Hospitals invited her to speak at wellness events. Advocacy groups named her an honorary ambassador for cancer awareness. To many, Suzanne had transcended the role of actress. She had become a healer through her story. Her legacy in television continued to expand. Younger cast members of Days of Our Lives began referring to her affectionately as Miss Suzanne, turning to her for advice and comfort. She would take them aside between takes, reminding them to find truth in every line. "The camera can always tell when your heart isn't in it," she would say. Her words carried the weight of 5 decades of experience and the tenderness of someone who had poured her soul into every scene. Some of those younger actors later admitted that just standing next to her during rehearsals made them feel as if they were learning from history itself. "She's the link between the golden age of television and the world we live in now," one co-star reflected. "Her presence is like a bridge between generations." Beyond the set, Suzanne's compassion continued to shape lives. She quietly visited hospitals, bringing small gifts and handwritten notes to patients recovering from surgery or chemotherapy. She never announced these visits publicly. It was only through the stories of those she met that the world learned of her kindness. One woman wrote online, "She sat by my bedside for 10 minutes, told me I was beautiful, and promised I'd dance again. That moment changed my life." Her humility made these gestures even more powerful. To Suzanne, kindness wasn't a performance. It was her way of thanking the universe for allowing her to continue doing what she loved. Financial analysts and entertainment journalists remained fascinated by her understated fortune, often describing it as the quiet empire of a daytime queen. But those close to her dismissed the numbers as meaningless to Suzanne. What mattered to her was legacy, the impact she would leave behind, not the wealth she had accumulated. In private conversations, she often said, "The real treasure is the love you build with people." Her estate plans reportedly include significant charitable donations to arts programs and medical research institutions, ensuring that her influence will continue long after she leaves the stage. Friends say she has already set up scholarships for aspiring performers who cannot afford acting school, mirroring her own struggles as a young dancer from Virginia who once had nothing but ambition and a dream. Her emotional connection to the Days of Our Lives audience only deepened after her comeback. Fans organized tribute pages, charity fundraisers, and anniversary projects in her name. Some sent scrapbooks filled with handwritten letters from across decades, stories of how Maggie Horton had given them hope during difficult times. Reading through them, Suzanne reportedly wept. "They see themselves in Maggie," she said, "and maybe they see a little bit of me too. That's the most beautiful reward any actor could ask for." At home, her life remained simple. She spent her evenings in her favorite chair, watching old black-and-white musicals, sometimes humming softly to the songs that once inspired her to dance. The walls of her living room were lined with framed photographs. Her first days as a rockette at Radio City Music Hall, backstage moments with cast members, and candid snapshots with her beloved dog curled up on her lap. Friends described her home as a museum of memories, but filled with warmth, not nostalgia. There was no trace of bitterness, no longing for lost youth, only gratitude. When asked in a recent profile how she wanted to be remembered, Suzanne paused for a long moment before replying, "As someone who gave joy and kept going when it was hardest to smile." That simple statement summed up her life's philosophy. Her story is not one of tragedy or celebrity. It's the chronicle of a woman who, time and again, turned adversity into artistry. And so, as Days of Our Lives continues into its 7th decade, Suzanne Rogers remains its beating heart, a living embodiment of everything the show represents: endurance, love, and faith. In an era when fame fades quickly and heroes come and go, Suzanne endures like a quiet star that never stops shining. Each scene she films now carries a deeper resonance, each smile on screen a symbol of victory. For audiences who have followed her journey, she is not just Maggie Horton. She is proof that grace can outlast pain, that hope can survive even the hardest storms, and that true legends never truly leave. They simply keep inspiring, one story at a time. As 2025 moved forward, Suzanne Rogers' presence became something almost mythical in the world of daytime television. Her story had become more than a career milestone. It was a testament to human resilience. Every new scene she filmed seemed to carry a deeper weight. Every smile or tear on screen reflected a lifetime of endurance and faith. Viewers often said that when Maggie Horton looked into the camera, it felt like Suzanne herself was speaking directly to them, reminding them to keep fighting, to keep believing, to keep living. It was as though her art and her reality had merged into one powerful message. Life may test you, but love and courage always find a way. What made Suzanne truly remarkable was how she faced adversity not with bitterness, but with gratitude. In interviews, she often spoke about her illnesses not as curses, but as lessons. "Every hardship has taught me something," she explained. "Myasthenia gravis taught me patience. Cancer taught me humility. Both taught me to listen to my body and my heart." She credited her survival not only to modern medicine, but to her unwavering faith and the kindness of those around her. The way she described her doctors, nurses, and caregivers made it clear she saw them as heroes in her story. "They gave me time," she said, "and time is the most precious gift anyone can give." Her colleagues continued to marvel at her professionalism. Even after decades in the industry, she still arrived early on set. Script pages carefully marked, every line memorized, every cue rehearsed. "She never phones it in," said one director. "Even after 50 years, she treats every scene like her first." Younger cast members said she often shared advice during breaks, gentle reminders about respecting the audience, valuing teamwork, and understanding that television, at its best, is an act of empathy. "She told me once," recalled a co-star, "that acting isn't about pretending. It's about revealing something true in yourself and offering it to the world." This philosophy extended beyond her work. Off-screen, Suzanne had become a quiet force for good. She supported multiple charities, many of them anonymously. Her donations to medical research helped fund equipment for neurology clinics, while her contributions to arts foundations provided scholarships to underprivileged students. When journalists asked why she gave so much without publicity, she simply replied, "I've been given so much love in my life. Giving it back just feels natural." Her humility became her legacy's defining trait. Despite her fame, Suzanne never lost her sense of humor. In one memorable moment during a talk show appearance, when the host asked if she ever planned to retire, she laughed and said, "I'll stop when Maggie Horton stops loving, so I guess never." The audience erupted in applause. That playful spirit, that refusal to surrender to age or illness, made her story resonate even more deeply. In an industry often obsessed with youth and reinvention, Suzanne represented something timeless: authenticity. She didn't chase trends, she transcended them. The emotional connection between Suzanne and her fans only grew stronger. Letters poured in from all over the world, stories from people who had battled illnesses, loss, or loneliness, saying that seeing her strength gave them courage to go on. A woman from Canada wrote, "When I watched Maggie fight through her struggles, it gave me the will to keep fighting mine." A retired nurse from Ohio said, "I see my own life in hers, decades of change, of laughter and tears, of never giving up." Suzanne read as many letters as she could, often keeping a few tucked in her purse as reminders of why she continued to work. "They're my inspiration," she said. They remind me that this job is more than just lines and lights. It's connection. Her story also reignited interest in the golden age of television. Documentaries began featuring her journey, using her as a symbol of endurance in entertainment. Younger generations, discovering Days of Our Lives through streaming platforms, found themselves captivated by the sincerity she brought to her role. "You can feel her history in every scene," one critic wrote. "It's like watching a living archive of American television." Indeed, Suzanne's career had become not just a personal triumph, but a historical treasure, a thread connecting decades of storytelling, from the classic era of live soap operas to the modern age of digital broadcasting. In late 2025, NBC held a special tribute event to celebrate her 52 years with the network. Former castmates, writers, and producers filled the room, sharing memories and laughter. Clips from her earliest appearances were projected on large screens. A young Suzanne, radiant and full of energy, dancing across the Horton living room. A middle-aged Suzanne, delivering tearful monologues that broke hearts across the country. And now, the Suzanne of today, older, wiser, stronger, still shining. When she took the stage, the applause was thunderous. "I've grown up here," she said, her voice trembling slightly. "This studio has been my second home, and all of you, my second family. Thank you for letting me live this dream for so long." That moment encapsulated everything Suzanne Rogers represented: gratitude, humility, and love. She was not just celebrating her survival, she was celebrating life itself. The standing ovation that followed seemed to go on forever, echoing through the studio where she had once taken her first steps as Maggie Horton. In the audience, people wiped away tears, not out of sadness, but awe. As the lights dimmed that evening, one of her producers summed up what everyone felt. "Suzanne Rogers isn't just part of television history, she is television history." And it was true. For more than half a century, Suzanne had done something almost no one else in the entertainment world had achieved. She had remained constant, through illness, through heartbreak, through the relentless passing of time. Her legacy wasn't written in scandal or spectacle, but in consistency, kindness, and quiet strength. Now, as she continues to inspire millions, Suzanne Rogers stands as a living testament to what it means to persevere with dignity. Her story reminds us that fame fades, beauty changes, and life itself can be unpredictable, but integrity, love, and courage endure. In every sense, Suzanne Rogers is a masterpiece in motion, proof that the truest stars don't burn out. They simply keep shining, lighting the path for everyone who follows. As the final months of 2025 unfolded, Suzanne Rogers seemed to embody the very spirit of rebirth. Her health had stabilized, her energy had returned, and her passion for storytelling burned brighter than ever. The entertainment world, still buzzing from her triumphant comeback, began to view her not just as a veteran actress, but as a living monument to perseverance. Everywhere she went, from red carpets to morning talk shows, people greeted her with reverence. Reporters described her presence as golden, fans compared her to Hollywood legends like Betty White and Angela Lansbury, and younger artists spoke of her as a mentor whose very existence reminded them that authenticity never goes out of style. Suzanne, however, remained as modest as ever, often deflecting praise with a gentle laugh. "I'm just lucky," she would say. "Lucky to be here, lucky to still do what I love." In truth, her life had become a mosaic of miracles, each year, each challenge, each comeback, adding another piece to the portrait of a woman who refused to give up. After surviving not one but two major illnesses, she had found a renewed sense of purpose. She began attending more fan conventions, not for publicity, but to connect directly with the people who had followed her journey for half a century. At one event in Chicago, she was greeted by thousands of fans, many wearing T-shirts emblazoned with the words, "Maggie Forever." The crowd erupted into cheers as she took the stage, her eyes welling up as she looked out over generations of faces, some young, some old, all united by love. "You're the reason I'm still here," she told them, her voice trembling. "Every letter, every message, every hug. You gave me strength when I thought I had none left." Her story continued to make headlines, not as a scandal or tragedy, but as a source of hope. Magazine covers declared her the Queen of Resilience, and television specials revisited her career through the decades, from her early days as a rockette to her record-breaking run on Days of Our Lives. Producers of the show even considered dedicating an anniversary arc to Maggie Horton, exploring her life as a reflection of Suzanne's own, a woman who had endured heartbreak, illness, and the passage of time, yet remained unshaken in her faith. The idea, insiders said, came directly from Suzanne's example. "Her life is a story worth telling," one executive explained. "And Maggie's strength is Suzanne's strength." Off camera, Suzanne's days were filled with quiet joy. She spent more time tending to her garden, caring for her 2 rescue dogs, and staying connected with friends and fans online. She began writing a memoir, not a tell-all about Hollywood, but a deeply personal reflection on gratitude, healing, and the enduring power of kindness. In her notes, she described the turning points of her life, not by awards or roles, but by moments of grace. A stranger's encouragement during her early Broadway days, a doctor's compassion during her treatments, a fan's handwritten note that arrived when she needed it most. "Those are the things that matter," she wrote, "the small acts of love that keep the world turning." As she grew older, Suzanne also found herself reflecting more on legacy. She often said she didn't want to be remembered for fame or fortune, but for the light she brought into others' lives. To her, success wasn't measured by ratings or money. It was measured by hearts touched. "If one person feels stronger because of something I said or did, then that's enough," she told an interviewer. Her words resonated deeply, becoming viral quotes shared across social media, often alongside images of her radiant smile. For a generation bombarded by fleeting celebrity culture, Suzanne's authenticity felt like a breath of fresh air. Her continued work on Days of Our Lives only deepened her legend. The series' writers crafted new storylines for Maggie that mirrored Suzanne's emotional truth. Compassion in the face of loss, strength in recovery, and gratitude for life's simplest joys. Viewers saw their beloved character evolve into a matriarch whose wisdom guided younger generations, a reflection of Suzanne's own role on set. Behind the scenes, she became the emotional center of the cast. She comforted nervous newcomers, advised struggling directors, and often brought baked goods from home for everyone to share. "She's like our guardian angel," said one crew member, "the heartbeat of the show." Meanwhile, the world continued to honor her. In early November, she received the Lifetime Achievement Award from the Television Hall of Fame, recognizing her unparalleled contribution to American culture. During her acceptance speech, the audience fell silent as she began. "All I ever wanted was to tell stories that made people feel less alone. If I've done that, even once, then I've done my job." Her voice cracked slightly, but she continued, steady and graceful, ending with a line that drew thunderous applause. "The real miracle isn't being on television for 50 years, it's having people still care after all that time." When the ceremony ended, fellow actors and fans alike crowded around her, taking photos, offering hugs, and whispering words of thanks. Many said later that the moment felt like history being written in real time. Suzanne's journey had come full circle, from a wide-eyed dancer chasing dreams in New York City to an immortal icon of strength and grace. At home that night, she placed the award on a modest shelf beside her Emmy and framed family photos. As she poured herself a cup of tea and sat in her favorite chair, she thought about the road behind her. its triumphs and heartbreaks, its laughter and pain, and smiled. She knew she had lived fully, loved deeply, and left an imprint that would last long after she was gone. Her story is not just that of an actress, but of a woman who became a symbol of faith, resilience, and everlasting hope. Suzanne Rogers taught millions that the most powerful kind of beauty is the one that survives everything, time, illness, and fear, and still shines. And as the lights dim on another year of Days of Our Lives, her own story continues, not as a farewell, but as a quiet promise that strength, love, and grace will always endure. As the calendar turned to 2026, Suzanne Rogers' name had become synonymous with endurance and inspiration. Across the entertainment landscape, her story continued to echo, not as a tale of celebrity glamour, but as a celebration of perseverance, artistry, and heart. In an era dominated by fleeting fame, Suzanne stood as proof that true greatness is built not on headlines, but on humanity. Her image appeared everywhere that winter, in glossy magazine spreads, television retrospectives, and even motivational posters in hospitals and schools. But when asked about the sudden wave of attention, she laughed softly and said, "It's funny, isn't it? I've been here all along." That humility, graceful, grounded, and utterly sincere, reminded everyone why she had become an icon. Her ongoing work on Days of Our Lives continued to captivate audiences. Producers and writers marveled at her ability to bring freshness to a character she had embodied for more than half a century. In one especially moving storyline, Maggie Horton faced her own battle with illness, written as a tribute to Suzanne's real-life strength. The scenes were filmed in near silence on set. Crew members often found themselves crying behind the camera as Suzanne delivered her lines with breathtaking authenticity. Her performance was not about acting anymore. It was about truth. Critics described those episodes as some of the most powerful moments in daytime television history. "You could feel the life behind every word," one reviewer wrote. Suzanne Rogers wasn't just playing a role, she was living it. But her influence extended far beyond the screen. Suzanne had become a public advocate for health awareness, using her platform to encourage early cancer screenings and self-care. In partnership with national organizations, she helped launch a campaign titled Strong Hearts, Strong Lives, aimed at empowering older adults to prioritize their health and mental well-being. Her message was simple but deeply resonant. It's never too late to take care of yourself. You're never too old to fight. The campaign went viral, shared by thousands across social media with her smiling face, aglow with wisdom and resilience, becoming a symbol of hope for millions. Her philanthropy grew more visible too. She funded grants for underprivileged performing arts students, donated to hospitals researching myasthenia gravis, and sponsored scholarships in her parents' names at the Virginia School of the Arts. Every gesture reflected a woman deeply aware of her blessings. "When you've been given the gift of time," she said, "you want to spend it giving back." Those close to her said that she lived every day with a sense of quiet gratitude, often beginning her mornings with prayer and ending them with handwritten notes of thanks to friends and fans. "She never forgets anyone," said her longtime assistant. Even now, she remembers birthdays, anniversaries, and little things that most people overlook. That's her magic. Her fans continued to rally around her. Across the country, fan clubs organized charity drives in her honor, raising money for hospitals, shelters, and senior care centers. They called it the Maggie movement, inspired by Suzanne's compassion both on and off screen. When she learned about it, she was moved to tears. "I can't believe they do that," she said. "If my story helps even one person feel less alone, then that's all I ever wanted." In interviews, she spoke candidly about aging in Hollywood. "There's so much pressure to stay young," she remarked. "But I think beauty changes. It becomes something deeper, something that comes from kindness, from the way you treat people." Her words struck a powerful chord in an industry that often sidelines older women. She became an unexpected spokesperson for age positivity, appearing on talk shows to discuss how fulfillment doesn't end at 40 or even 80. "Life doesn't stop when you have wrinkles," she said with a laugh. "It just gets more interesting." Her friends often said that Suzanne's strength came from her unshakable optimism. Even after everything she had endured, she remained a beacon of joy. During a behind-the-scenes break one afternoon, a young actor asked how she managed to stay so happy after so many years. Suzanne smiled and replied, "I choose joy every morning. It's a decision. No matter how hard life gets, there's always something worth smiling about." That simple piece of wisdom spread like wildfire online, quoted by fans, printed on posters, and even used in mental health campaigns. The following spring, NBC aired a primetime special titled Suzanne Rogers, A Life in Motion. The documentary chronicled her remarkable journey, from a small-town girl with big dreams to one of television's longest-running stars. It featured interviews with fellow actors, producers, and lifelong fans who described her as a national treasure. The highlight of the program was a surprise reunion. Several of Suzanne's former Days of Our Lives co-stars appeared on stage to thank her for her friendship and mentorship. When they presented her with a crystal plaque engraved with the words, "For a lifetime of light," Suzanne fought back tears. "I don't know what to say," she whispered. "You've all made my life so much brighter." That night, millions watched as Suzanne's life story played out on screen. A living tapestry woven from courage, creativity, and compassion. The documentary ended with a montage of her most iconic moments, set to soft piano music. The final shot lingered on her smiling face, illuminated by studio lights, as she delivered her most memorable line, "It's good to be home." The audience erupted in applause, and social media flooded with tributes, thanking her for a lifetime of inspiration. Today, Suzanne Rogers stands not just as a performer, but as a cultural symbol, a woman who turned struggle into strength and pain into purpose. Her journey is a reminder that success isn't defined by fame or fortune, but by resilience, empathy, and the courage to keep going when the spotlight fades. She once said, "If I've learned anything, it's that love, real love, never grows old." And in her eyes, that truth still shines. Love for her craft, her audience, and the life she built brick by brick, year after year. As her story continues, Suzanne remains a beacon for anyone who has ever faced fear and found hope again. Her voice, steady and warm, continues to echo across generations. A living testament to the power of perseverance, the beauty of kindness, and the grace of never giving up. By early 2026, Suzanne Rogers' story had transcended the boundaries of television and entered the collective memory of American culture. She was no longer simply a performer, she had become a symbol of courage, compassion, and endurance. Wherever she appeared, people stood and applauded, not for a single role, but for a lifetime of grace. Her name evoked warmth, her smile inspired hope, and her story gave strength to those quietly fighting their own battles. The entertainment world had long seen legends rise and fade, but Suzanne's light only seemed to grow stronger with time. Her latest Days of Our Lives scenes revealed a depth that critics described as spiritual. The camera lingered on her face longer now, not out of vanity, but reverence. Every glance, every sigh carried the weight of half a century of lived experience. Younger actors often whispered to each other on set that being in a scene with Suzanne felt like attending a master class in humanity. Directors barely needed to guide her. One quiet look from her could transform an entire episode. It was as though Maggie Horton had merged entirely with Suzanne Rogers. The line between fiction and reality blurred into something poetic and eternal. As her influence grew, Suzanne began to appear in interviews that went beyond entertainment. Major networks invited her to speak about perseverance, purpose, and aging gracefully in a youth-obsessed world. Sitting across from journalists, she radiated calm confidence, her words filled with wisdom. "You can't control what happens to you," she said on one primetime special, "but you can control how you respond. I chose kindness. I chose joy. I chose to keep moving forward." That statement spread across social media, viewed millions of times. It wasn't just a quote. It was a philosophy that resonated with everyone, from teenagers facing uncertainty to elderly fans rediscovering meaning in later life. Her memoir, Grace in Motion, released in March 2026, became an instant bestseller. Written in her own voice, it read like a letter to the world, gentle, reflective, and full of gratitude. She shared childhood memories of dancing barefoot in her backyard in Virginia, the thrill of joining Radio City Music Hall, the heartbreak of illness, and the quiet triumphs of recovery. What made the book remarkable was its honesty. She didn't shy away from vulnerability. She described her fear when first diagnosed with cancer, the nights she lay awake wondering if she'd ever perform again, and the moment she realized survival wasn't about defiance. It was about acceptance. Critics called it a love letter to life itself. Readers wrote to her saying that her words had helped them through grief, loss, or illness. Suzanne read every letter, often responding personally. "If my story can help someone find their own strength," she said, "then that's the greatest award I could ever receive." Her schedule became busier than ever, yet she approached it with serenity. Between filming and charity events, she found time to mentor young performers at local acting schools. She told them that talent was important, but heart mattered more. "Technique can be taught," she said. "Compassion can't. If you don't feel deeply, you can't make anyone else feel anything." The students adored her, not just for her fame, but for her authenticity. One recalled, "She didn't talk to us like a celebrity. She talked to us like a friend who believed in us." Meanwhile, her legacy continued to expand behind the scenes. Days of Our Lives, producers announced a long-term plan to preserve her character's history in a digital archive, a tribute to the longest-running role in American soap opera history. NBC's headquarters even unveiled a bronze plaque honoring her contribution to television. When asked about it, Suzanne smiled and said, "I just hope people keep watching, because as long as they do, Maggie will live forever." Her health remained stable, but she often spoke about time with a kind of peaceful acceptance. "I don't fear it," she said. "I've had more blessings than I ever dreamed of. Every sunrise feels like a gift." Friends said she had developed a ritual. Each morning, she'd write down 3 things she was grateful for, whether it was a call from a friend, a beautiful flower blooming in her garden, or simply the joy of feeling strong again. That gratitude became the essence of her being, the quiet power that drew people to her. By summer, Suzanne received yet another honor, a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame, something fans had long petitioned for. The ceremony drew thousands. As she stepped up to the podium, cameras flashing, she paused and looked out at the sea of faces, friends, co-stars, fans spanning generations. "This isn't just my star," she said. "It belongs to everyone who believed in me, everyone who fought their own battles and kept going. If I could, I'd carve your names right next to mine." The crowd erupted, and in that moment, Hollywood felt united, not by glamour, but by gratitude. That night, Suzanne went home exhausted, but glowing. She placed a small bouquet of white roses beside a framed photograph of her younger self in a Rockette costume. "We made it," she whispered to the picture. "Every version of me made it." Then she sat quietly in her living room, the soft hum of the city outside blending with the echoes of her memories. To her, the applause was never about fame. It was about connection. Every performance, every story, every challenge she'd overcome had led to this moment of peace. As 2026 drew to a close, Suzanne Rogers stood as one of the last great links between television's golden era and the present day, a woman who had seen the industry change but never lost her sense of purpose. Her life was not just a career, it was a symphony of persistence, grace, and love. And though decades of lights, cameras, and scripts had defined her, Suzanne's truest performance was always herself, real, humble, and luminous. She once said, "The show must go on, but so must we, and with every breath I want to remind the world that beauty still exists in kindness." And so it does. As 2026 moved into its final months, Suzanne Rogers seemed to radiate an even deeper serenity, the kind that comes only after a lifetime of triumphs, challenges, and quiet wisdom. Her days had taken on a new rhythm, less about the rush of production schedules, more about reflection and gratitude. Yet, despite the calm, her influence in the entertainment world had never been stronger. The media continued to celebrate her as the last matriarch of daytime television, a title she accepted with gentle humility. For Suzanne, it wasn't about legacy or fame. It was about love. Love for her craft, her colleagues, and the millions of viewers who had welcomed her into their homes for over 5 decades. Filming on Days of Our Lives resumed in late autumn, and Suzanne returned to the Horton family kitchen set once again. The scent of freshly brewed coffee, the familiar creak of the studio floor, the soft murmur of crew members preparing the scene. It all felt like home. She slipped back into Maggie's world as naturally as breathing, her every gesture imbued with meaning. The cameras began rolling, and in that moment there was no separation between actress and character. Maggie's wisdom, compassion, and quiet resilience were Suzanne's own. When she finished her scene, the studio erupted into applause, though it wasn't written into the script. It was spontaneous, a wave of gratitude from everyone who had witnessed her unwavering spirit. Away from the studio lights, Suzanne had found new joy in the simplicity of everyday life. She often spoke about the beauty of slowing down, morning walks with her dogs, evenings spent reading classic novels, the quiet pleasure of watching the sunset from her garden. "I used to think happiness was applause," she told one interviewer. "Now I know it's peace." She had learned to live fully in each moment, appreciating not just the grand milestones, but the subtle, fleeting details that make life rich. Fans who met her at conventions or charity events often remarked on how present she seemed, how she listened with genuine care, how her laughter filled a room with warmth. Her philanthropic work grew into a quiet mission of compassion. Suzanne expanded her involvement with cancer foundations and mental health organizations, advocating for early screenings and emotional support programs for older adults. "We spend so much time trying to stay young," she said during a televised fundraiser, "when what we really need is to stay kind." She personally financed several wellness retreats for women recovering from illness, focusing on healing through art, music, and storytelling. "Creativity heals the soul," she explained, "and when we share our stories, we help others find theirs." The retreats became life-changing experiences for many who attended, some calling them the Maggie Miracle. In December, NBC hosted a special holiday broadcast celebrating 60 years of Days of Our Lives, with Suzanne as the emotional centerpiece. The studio was decorated like a winter wonderland, filled with photos, archival footage, and the laughter of cast members past and present. During the live tribute, clips played of Suzanne's most iconic scenes, the tearful moments, the heartfelt speeches, the quiet strength that had defined her character for generations. When the lights dimmed and she stepped onto the stage, the audience rose to their feet in unison. She looked out over them, visibly moved, and said, "It's not just a show, it's a family, and you've all been part of mine." The crowd's applause lasted several minutes. Co-stars wiped away tears. Some said later that it felt like time had stopped. The evening ended with a touching surprise, a video message from fans around the world thanking her for her decades of dedication. People from dozens of countries appeared on screen, holding handwritten signs that read, "Thank you, Suzanne," in different languages. She covered her face with her hands, overcome with emotion. "I can't believe this," she whispered. "You've all given me the greatest gift imaginable." The next morning, the clip went viral, viewed tens of millions of times. It wasn't a farewell, it was a celebration of a life still unfolding. As the year closed, Suzanne reflected on her journey in an essay published by Vanity Fair. Titled "The Gift of Time," it was both intimate and profound. "I've lived many lives through Maggie Horton," she wrote, "but the one I'm proudest of is my own. Life isn't always kind, but it's always worth living. If there's one thing I hope people remember about me, it's that I never stopped believing in goodness." The piece became one of the magazine's most read articles of the year, a testament to her enduring connection with audiences. In her personal life, Suzanne remained grounded and surrounded by love. Her circle of friends, many of whom had known her since her Broadway days, visited often, sharing laughter and memories. They called her the heartbeat of every room. Despite her age, she still exuded vitality, her mind sharp and her humor quick. "The secret?" she joked once. "Never take yourself too seriously and eat dessert first." As 2026 gave way to a new year, Suzanne stood on the threshold of her next chapter, radiant and at peace. The world had changed countless times since she first stepped onto a set in 1973, but her light had never dimmed. In a business that measures success by fleeting fame, she had built something lasting, an unbreakable bond of trust, compassion, and love. She was the living embodiment of her own philosophy, that no matter what life takes from you, it can never take your spirit. And so, as the final credits of another year rolled by, Suzanne Rogers remained the same woman she had always been, humble, grateful, endlessly kind. The applause might fade, the lights might dim, but her legacy will shine forever, like a gentle flame that continues to warm hearts long after the stage goes dark. For Suzanne, the curtain never truly falls. It only rises again somewhere in another story, in another heart inspired to believe. The dawn of 2027 arrived softly over Los Angeles, and with it came a renewed sense of grace in Suzanne Rogers' world. The new year marked an extraordinary milestone, 54 years since she had first stepped into the role of Maggie Horton on Days of Our Lives. Few artists in history could claim such unwavering dedication to a single character, and fewer still could carry it with the dignity, love, and sincerity that Suzanne embodied. Yet despite the historic achievement, she refused to see herself as extraordinary. "I'm just doing what I love," she told a reporter. "Every day I get to tell a story. That's the blessing." Her words were simple, but her presence was monumental. On the first day back on set after the holidays, the studio once again became her sanctuary. The familiar hum of lights, the steady rhythm of cameras rolling, and the laughter of the crew filled the air like music. Suzanne walked into the Horton living room set with a quiet smile, pausing for a moment to look around. The space had evolved through the years, but it still felt like home. She took her mark, looked into the camera, and transformed seamlessly into Maggie. It was a sight that brought a hush to the room, because when Suzanne worked, it wasn't acting. It was living. As she delivered her first lines of the new season, everyone on set knew they were witnessing something rare. She carried the emotional weight of the story with remarkable ease, her gestures subtle, her voice calm, yet rich with emotion. When the director called "cut," applause broke out spontaneously. Younger cast members gathered around her, their admiration unguarded. "You make it look effortless," one of them said. Suzanne laughed and shook her head. "It's never effortless," she replied. "It's just love." In interviews, She reflected more deeply than ever before on her journey. "I've spent most of my life pretending to be someone else," she said. "But in doing that, I learned who I really am." She spoke about how Maggie had taught her patience, compassion, and strength. "Every hardship she faced helped me face mine. I think that's why I never wanted to let her go. We grew up together." That sense of unity between actress and character fascinated her audience, blurring the line between art and life. Fans often said they couldn't imagine one without the other. Maggie was Suzanne, and Suzanne was Maggie. Her personal life had settled into a peaceful rhythm. Friends described her home as a haven of light, filled with flowers, music, and framed photographs capturing a lifetime of memories. She often hosted quiet dinners with close friends, serving home-cooked meals and reminiscing about the old days in New York when she was a young dancer with big dreams. "I still remember the feeling of stepping onto that stage for the first time," she told them. "It's the same feeling I get every time I walk into the studio. That spark never fades." Her philanthropic commitments also expanded in 2027. She launched a foundation dedicated to supporting performing artists with chronic illnesses, providing both financial and emotional assistance. The idea, she said, came from her own experience. "When I was diagnosed with myasthenia gravis, I didn't know if I'd ever work again. No one should have to face that kind of fear alone." The Suzanne Rogers Foundation for the Arts and Healing quickly gained national recognition for its compassionate mission. She attended its first benefit gala in a stunning emerald gown, greeted with a standing ovation from an audience of peers, philanthropists, and longtime fans. "You're teaching the world what real strength looks like," the host said as she took the stage. Suzanne smiled modestly. "Strength," she replied, "is just love that refuses to quit." Her career continued to inspire new generations. Universities began studying her longevity as a case of artistic resilience, citing her adaptability in an ever-changing industry. Acting students analyzed her performances, noting how she conveyed so much with so little. A glance, a pause, a soft smile. She became the embodiment of what it meant to age not just gracefully, but powerfully. "There's nothing to fear about getting older," she said during one seminar. "It means you've had more chances to love, to learn, to give, and that's a beautiful thing." Later that year, a special documentary titled Suzanne Rogers, The Woman Behind the Role, premiered to critical acclaim. It featured rare behind-the-scenes footage, interviews with co-stars, and Suzanne's reflections on her craft. One poignant moment showed her sitting in her dressing room, removing her makeup after a long day of filming. "I've been many versions of Maggie," she said softly, "but every time I take off the costume, I still see the same little girl who just wanted to dance." The segment went viral, leaving viewers deeply moved by her vulnerability. Her fans, loyal as ever, continued to honor her with tributes online. Social media pages dedicated to her legacy overflowed with messages of gratitude. "You've been a light in my life since I was a child," one wrote. Another said, "When I'm sick or sad, I watch Maggie and remember that there's always hope." Suzanne often responded personally, thanking them for their words. "We've shared our lives together," she wrote in one reply. "That's the magic of storytelling. It connects souls." By the end of 2027, Suzanne's influence had reached beyond television. She was invited to deliver a keynote address at the American Film Institute's annual gala, where she spoke about the power of endurance in art. "If you love something enough," she told the audience, "you don't walk away from it when it gets hard. You hold on tighter. Because love, real love, isn't about perfection. It's about persistence." Her words brought the room to tears. As she left the stage that night, the applause followed her out into the cool California air. She paused under the stars, took a deep breath, and smiled. For Suzanne Rogers, Life had always been a performance of gratitude, a dance between light and shadow, faith and endurance. And even now, after more than half a century in the spotlight, she knew her story was still unfolding. The curtain hadn't fallen. It had simply risen again, welcoming another act in a life that had already inspired millions. Suzanne Rogers' story is more than the chronicle of a television star. It is the living testament of a woman whose heart has touched millions. Her journey reminds us of what it truly means to be human, to fall, to rise, to endure, and to keep shining through it all. For over 5 decades, she has graced our screens not just as Maggie Horton, but as a symbol of faith, love, and perseverance. Through her laughter and her tears, her quiet grace and unshakable strength, she has given the world something far more precious than fame. She has given us hope. In every smile she shares, in every scene she performs, there is a message that transcends the screen, that kindness matters, that love heals, and that resilience can turn even the darkest moments into light. Suzanne's legacy is not measured in awards or wealth, but in the countless hearts she has lifted over the years. She has shown that true beauty lies in compassion, and true power lies in gentleness. When she battled illness, she did not hide behind fame. She faced it with courage, reminding us that even the strongest people sometimes need to be held, to be seen, to be loved. Her openness transformed pain into purpose, her vulnerability into inspiration. Today, as Suzanne continues to inspire generations young and old, we have the privilege to celebrate her, not just for what she has done, but for who she is. Her story belongs to all of us who have ever faced fear and chosen hope, who have stumbled and stood back up, who have found light in the most unexpected places. Suzanne Rogers stands as a reminder that no matter what life takes from us, it can never take our ability to love. So let us take a moment to honor her courage and her kindness. Let us remember that behind the glamour of Hollywood is a woman who still believes in gratitude, in connection, in the quiet power of empathy. Suzanne's journey through pain and perseverance mirrors the struggles of so many who are fighting battles we may never see. And in her example, we find comfort, we find strength, we find the will to keep moving forward. If her story has touched you, if her spirit has inspired you, if her resilience has reminded you of the beauty in simply living, then share that love with others. Spread her story so it can reach more hearts, lift more spirits, and remind more people that hope still lives among us. Click that like button to show your love for Suzanne Rogers, the woman who taught us that grace never fades. Share this story so that others may feel her strength and find their own. And don't forget to subscribe to this channel to continue celebrating the lives of extraordinary souls who remind us of the best in humanity. Every click, every share, every word of kindness helps keep Suzanne's light burning bright, not just as a television icon, but as a guiding star for everyone who believes that goodness can still change the world. Let's honor her by living as she does, with love, resilience, and a heart open to every sunrise. Because in a world that often forgets the power of gentleness, Suzanne Rogers is proof that compassion is timeless, courage is contagious, and love, when shared, never dies.